This morning, PlayStation dropped a new blog post detailing some of the upcoming changes as part of the new PlayStation Plus service, with a really heavy focus on what exactly is happening with the classic games. And while there are still some unknowns and a few little unclear things here and there, I gotta say, overall the direction that it's going, it's looking really good. Maybe. So the update brought us more news for a couple different aspects of Plus, but I really want to focus on what's going on with the classic games, and in particular, what's going on with the individual sale and access to them. See, back when PlayStation Plus Premium was first announced, they just talked about the fact that as part of this highest tier, you'd gain access to classic games, and a major question I had right away was, well, what does this mean for, being able to maybe buy some of these games separately? And the answer, as it turns out, is some of them. Basically, the blog post just has a single line at the end of one of the paragraphs saying that some of these games are going to be made available separately, and from the looks of it, this is something that is specific to the PS1 and PSP games, not something that applies to the PS2 games or, of course, the PS3 games, since those are going to be locked to stream play only anyways. What's really cool about this, though, is they do go out of their way to talk about the fact that if you previously owned any of these games digitally, for instance buying them on the PS3 or PS Vita, those are going to carry over to the PS4 and PS5, so any games that you bought previously digitally that are going to be made available as part of the service, you're going to have access to as well, even if you don't pay for PlayStation Plus. So for example, if you bought Final Fantasy Tactics on the PSP digitally, and that ends up being one of the games included as part of the service, well, you don't have to pay for PlayStation Plus, you just have access to that game automatically. Now again, part of what makes this all a little bit hazy is their wording of some games. It's not going to be all of them, and what I suspect is going on, this is entirely an educated guess just based on what they've been saying and what we've kind of seen trend-wise, is I suspect basically any game that was previously available digitally, whether that was through the PS3 or PS Vita store, digital PSP games, anything that was made available that way before on last systems, will be made available directly on PS4 and PS5 as well. But if it's a new title, a PS1 classic that previously wasn't on one of those lists, for instance, then those ones are going to be locked behind PlayStation Plus. Again, this is just a guess, but it would make a lot of sense to me in terms of being something where they're trying to keep alive those games that were previously made available for individual sale, but if it was something that is now brand new to the service, they're going to lock it behind it. This actually makes a lot of sense if you think about what happened with the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita stores last year. There was a really big reaction from people because of the fact that those stores were closing down, and the issue wasn't so much that those stores specifically were closing down, but they were closing down with a lot of the content on them not being made available elsewhere. So what might be happening here is PlayStation is going to be reviving a lot of those games on PS4 and PS5, giving people access to them and the ability to play them there, and then they can move forward with the original plan of closing down those shops to really make people want to focus on the currently available system. Well, I think this does mean that the conversation of PS3 and PS Vita stores being closed down sometime in the near future is probably going to be on the table again. It doesn't bother me as much because, again, now we will be having a way to access these titles, assuming that the vast majority of the library, if not all of it, could be made available again digitally on 4 and 5. As long as the Vita is supported, I'm going to go ahead and keep using it though, because I really like playing on handheld, and until they announce a Vita 2 or a PSP 3 or whatever, that's going to be my option to go to. Along with talking about the availability of these classics, they also talked about better performance for these games in basically two different forms. Games with increased performance and games that are just embracing later remastered versions. So for the remaster example, if a game already has some kind of updated version that was released on later systems, like say the BioShock remaster that came out on PS4 and all the other systems, that's going to be available as part of the service and is considered a way to play the classic version of BioShock. And this also applies to some games that have been re-released digitally on PlayStation 4 as well. For instance, say Wild Arms 3, a PS2 title that did get a digital version released on PS4, that's included in the service as well. Aside from these remasters though, that are basically pre-existing options they're using, they also mentioned that for other classic games there is going to be improved performance. And what's interesting here is it's kind of combining some of the major strengths of other forms of backwards compatibility that we're seeing on other systems. Similar to Xbox, they are citing that some games will be getting higher resolutions and higher frame rates. How many games that's represented under, we'll find out. They are, again, using that kind of unclear wording of some, but hopefully that's something that we're going to see across most of the board for games looking and running even better. And something that is similar to what Nintendo has done with Nintendo Switch Online is that some games are going to also offer additional functionalities where you can do things like have save states or even rewind gameplay. Now, all this stuff sounds great, but again, they are using the word some for basically all of this, so it's not entirely clear how many titles are going to be embracing all these features. Hopefully it's the majority though, because if it is, and the library really shapes up to have a lot of great classic titles on it, this could be really great for the service. You know, I've talked time and time again about how much I love the PS1 classics and PSP games digitally available on the Vita, and I just like having access to a lot of those titles. And the prospect of being able to just regain access to all of these on a modern home console and not even have to pay for them again, I really hope it includes as much of the library as possible, because if I can just start up Final Fantasy or Tactics Ogre or any number of PlayStation 1 classics, my playtime on the PS5 is going to skyrocket a lot. Aside from the classic games, they did talk about a couple of things involving the service. They talked about the kind of refresh rate of when new stuff is going to get added. Basically, PlayStation Plus Essentials will continue to add new games to the service at the start of every month, just like it is right now on regular PlayStation Plus, while the extra and premium tiers are going to add to their library of games during the middle of each month. So if you're subscribed to the highest tier, you're basically seeing a refresh of new content twice a month. This makes me really curious to see what kind of turnover rate we're going to see for some games, as well as how quickly the classics library might potentially grow. They also make brief mention of the time-limited trials. This is one of the other features of PlayStation Plus Premium, where certain games you're going to be able to play 2-hour demos before actually having to go ahead and buy them. So for instance, one of the big games they listed there is Horizon Forbidden West, where if you wanted to buy that game but you weren't entirely sure about it, you wanted to maybe give it a try first, well, you can play it for 2 hours as part of the service. Honestly, this is something that still feels a little weird to me. I feel like a try before buy thing should just be a generally available thing and not necessarily part of something you have to pay more money for, especially in the age of where digital is just so much easier and there's not as many rental services out there. I just like the idea of people being able to try stuff before buying it. And so it's great that these demos are existing. It's just weird to me that it's locked behind the most expensive version of the subscription. All in all, I gotta say, I really like the direction this whole service is going based on the blog post. There's still a lot of room for it to possibly not turn out the way I'm hoping for, because of the fact that they are, again, using a lot of kind of unclear wording for how common some of these features and things are going to be. But just the concept alone of the fact that they are going to honor people's previous purchases on last systems digitally and make them available on current systems is amazing. It's one of those things that should not be really a surprise. Like, you would just imagine, I bought this before, I should have access to it again. But we've had so many situations before where, you know, companies offer a way to buy a game and then they offer a new way to buy it and they aren't the same thing, so you have to buy it all over again. Nintendo. It's just really refreshing to see that actually a situation is coming up where those previous purchases are being honored, and I love that. Hopefully we'll be seeing even more updates detailing everything that's going on with the service before it fully launches. It is a thing they're going to be rolling out starting late this month in May. For North and South America specifically, we're not going to be seeing it until June 13th. So we're about a month away from being able to actually experiment with this thing firsthand and try it out. I'm really excited to go hands-on with it. I am planning on doing a video covering it the moment that it's made available, because I'm really interested in seeing what these kind of performance upticks we're going to be seeing, how the whole system of re-downloading games that I've previously bought on last generations works out. Just a lot of stuff that I think is conceptually really exciting, and I really want to see it work out the right way. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit thumbs up to let me know, hit thumbs down if you didn't, just because you guys can't see the ratio, I can, so it's good for me to know. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do that too. I've got a lot more stuff coming on the way, and we'll see you guys later.